Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Susanne Maziarz. I'm the music director here, and I have your announcements for the coming week. Choir meets on Monday nights from 7 to 9. It's a non-audition choir. If you're interested in singing with us, come talk to me after service. On Wednesday evenings, here we offer Hatha Yoga, led by Christina Keel from 7:30 to 9. If you'd like to come, you need to bring your own yoga mat. And in our art gallery, visit the two shows currently on until the end of the year, Michael Moon's Roots and Wings and Geraldine Mannion's Between Worlds. It's your last chance for items that were not bid on at the silent auction. The fundraising team will be in the room to my left after service, if you'd like to check out what's there and maybe get a great deal. We have headsets that connect you directly to the sound from the microphones in our service. It's like the presenters and musicians are right beside you. If you would like to use one, if you could just, there's Gordon demonstrating. If you'd like to use one, just go to the back corner there and ask him to borrow one for the service. There will be a winter solstice circle dance on Friday, December 15th from 6:30 to 10 here in the hall. No experience is necessary. Circle dances are based on simple repetitive steps that are taught by experienced facilitators. You can speak to Moira for more info. She's not here today, though. Sunday, December 17th, here in Rafos Hall from 3 to 5, Jane Lewis and I offer circle music, circle singing workshop. No matter what your level of musical experience is, you are welcome to come and create spontaneous, joyful music making in a circle. A suggested donation of $10 or more is appreciated. Come join members of the Danforth Jewish Circle in their monthly Jewish folk dancing. The last one for 2023 will be the same day, Sunday the 17th, from 2:30 to 4, downstairs in the Herndale room. No dance experience is necessary, just bring your shoes and a smile. Expand your repertoire and meet new people. Explore one of the fun facets of Jewish culture. We'll be having a Christmas Eve service here at Neighborhood on 24th, which is a Sunday at 7 p.m. Join Reverend Pat Trudeau and our Spirit Choir for a festive focus service that brings together community in song and story. We will not be offering a Sunday morning service here on the 24th, but Toronto First will be here using our space in the morning, offering a service at 10:30. All are welcome. And if you're looking for a different type of holiday gathering, this holiday season can be a difficult time for those experiencing loss or a disconnect from the holly jolly of the season. So we'll be offering a Blue Christmas service, a Vesper service on Friday, December 22nd at 7 p.m., led by Reverend Pat. Cosmic Walk, Ritual, and Dance on Saturday, December 30th. There's a lot of dancing going on this month. On Saturday, December 30th from 7 to 10 here in Rafos Hall. You are invited to the special candlelit ritual journey to prepare you for the new year. And then it'll wrap up with snacks and ecstatic dancing with DJ Twyla. You can talk to myself or Natalie or Bruce, or just check out the posters we have around. And it's open to the public, so spread the word, invite your friends. Donations, of course, are gratefully accepted. And next Sunday, which is December 17th, our monthly theme for December is Many Paths, and we will be exploring Islam's message for dark times. Our guest speaker is Imam Irshad Osman. Music will be provided by Rula Saeed, and our service weaver will be Jillian Yuko.
Thank you, Susanne. We welcome you to our Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation service. My name is Allison Kabayama, and I will be your service weaver this morning. We start today's service by creating a sacred space. Please lay down your burdens and future plans. This may be a good time to turn off any electronics that might distract you. You can pick them back up after service if you so choose. Let's be fully present and in the moment. Please join me in reading our invocation. Let us cast the circle of a sacred space here. Let us cast the circle of a cherished space here, a space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life, a life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. This morning, I've asked Michelle Thorne to light our chalice. We light this chalice to remember, to light the fire within our own hearts. Our prelude today will be provided by Susanne and myself, and it's of a song that our guest speaker, Melina Bondy, wrote, and she's going to share a few words about that.
Hi, friends. Just to say, this is a song that I wrote 11 years ago as I was preparing to join the monastery in Plum Village, France, and it was the first time that my spiritual practice was taking me really into all the gunk and the mess inside, as opposed to just dealing with the outer stuff. And so it's a combination of dealing with the difficulties and also still finding the goodness. And I hope that that's something you can all touch too.
Who I am does not match up with the perceptions I have of me, 'cause who I am is different from all those stories, and who you are is more than another might tell you you have to be, and who you are is glory. What we are cannot be explained by an idea or theory, 'cause what we are defies all categories. Yes, what we are is the sea of conditions and possibilities. Yes, what we are is glory. There are parts of me that I'd rather not have to feel or hear or see. So much greed and fear and feeling so lonely. There are parts of you too that I know you'd rather not feel or hear or see. Even this too is glory, is glory. Glory is glory, glory. This flesh and blood is made up of the mountains and oceans and stars and trees. This flesh and blood defies all borders and territories, 'cause there's not even a you that can be truly separate from her or them or we. There is only change and change and glory and glory. And just gonna drink the water. As a visitor on this land, and coming from English, Dutch, Welsh, German, and Japanese ancestors, I strive to deepen my own understanding of Indigenous communities. I commit to reframing my responsibilities to land and community. I come with respect for this land that I'm on today, and for the people who have and do continue to reside here. I also recognize the First Nations and their ancestors in the area, including the Wendat Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit. Let's take a moment now to reflect on this land. Good morning and welcome. Our musical director is Susanne Maziarz. Our director of lifespan learning is Julia Thompson. I'm very happy to welcome again Melina Bondy, who will later be leading us in meditation and sharing the message of inspiration. I will also tell you a bit more about them later. At Neighborhood, we are open to many beliefs and learn from many traditions. We welcome all people here who are seeking a spiritual community. If you are visiting us in person for the first time or first couple of times, we welcome and encourage you to stay after service for our coffee time. And please take a red mug. That will be a signal to others that you're open to having some conversation about neighborhood or perhaps Unitarian Universalism, if that's new to you. Our services can vary greatly from week to week, so we encourage you to come for a few times to sample a few services and get a better sense of what we are doing here. Our mission at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. Our theme for December is Many Paths, and our theme for today is Be a Lamp Unto Yourself, Buddhist Wisdom for Navigating a Pluralistic World. This follows beautifully, I think, on last week's message, wherein Peter Marmarek succinctly explained the meaning of and differences between traditional, reformist, and experiential approaches to the world's religions. The title of today's message made me immediately think of hymn number 184 in our Singing the Living Tradition hymnal, Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourselves. Susanne was playing an interpretation of that piece as our gathering music this morning. The lyrics of this chant go like this. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence, hold to the truth within yourself, as to the only lamp. There is much theory available and no end to simple solutions offered today. But in reality, there are rarely easy, universally applicable answers. How do we navigate a complex life in our pluralistic world? I want to share a bit about my background as a descendant of generations of samurai and my having been a practitioner and assistant instructor in Jeet Kune Do. Very briefly, Jeet Kune Do, or JKD as we refer to it, is the system of martial arts and philosophies created by Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto. At that time, Bruce and Dan were already experts in over 30 martial arts from around the world, each of which had defined and specific techniques, drills, and approaches to training mentalities. Together, Lee and Inosanto conferred to understand why the best aspects of each art worked, identified the underlying principles, and out of this developed the fundamentals of JKD. Some arts were very good in certain circumstances or ranges of combat. Certain rigid dogmatic requirements were unsubstantiated. What resulted was a new understanding of having to subscribe to one system to the exclusion of all others, and which encouraged students to explore, experiment, and try on for themselves so that he or she might discover what best suited their particular attributes. We are encouraged to be open, adopt a beginner's mind, try various approaches, absorb what is useful, and discard what is not. Every practitioner's expression of JKD is therefore individual and continually growing and changing as we understand that truth is not sealed and we are free to learn, grow, and change. I know what I understand and believe today is different from what I understood and believed 10 years ago, and I expect the same will be true in 5 or 10 years from now. JKD is a living martial art in the same way that Unitarian Universalism is a living faith. In JKD, as in Unitarian Universalist congregations, our training partners or fellow members are extremely important. Hence the significance of our principles, number 3 and 4, which are acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, and a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The following reading is another way of understanding a similar process as described by the American author and educator Stephen Covey, who wrote, "Wisdom is your perspective on life, your sense of balance, your understanding of how the various parts and principles apply and relate to each other. It embraces judgment, discernment, comprehension. It is a gestalt of oneness and integrated wholeness." Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourself as to the only lamp. Now it is time to greet your neighbors. After you've greeted a few neighbors, perhaps you can turn to the camera at the back and offer a greeting to those joining us virtually. Susanne will sound a chime to end. Now please take a moment to greet the neighbors around you.
Check, check.
Good morning. Hello? Testing. Is it working? It doesn't seem like. I mean, I guess, can you hear me?
Not so good.
I can hear myself, but I guess it. Okay. So we have some children. Yay! So happy to see you. And anybody else who is young at heart who wants to join us? Oh, Lynn, it's so nice to see you here as well. All right, so this story is called Light Up the House. And once upon a time, there was a man who loved to give his children puzzles. Not just like, jigsaw puzzles, but kind of real brain teasers that had them kind of thinking outside the box. So one day, he built a one-room house, and he gathered his children, and he said, "I wonder if anybody could fill this house from top to bottom and from side to side with something so that there would be not even the teeniest, tiniest little bit of space left." Well, that was quite a challenge, but the oldest child said, "I am the strongest. I will go first." So she set out through the woods. Long she walked and short she walked until she came to a big, big rock, more like a boulder. And since you remember she's very strong, she picked it up and carried it all the way back to the house. And she sat it right on the threshold near the door and tried to push it all different ways, but it wouldn't fit through the doorway. So off she went to try again. Long she walked and short she walked until she came to the tallest tree in the forest. And she put her arms around it and hugged it and then pulled, and she managed to pull up that tree. And she heaved it, dragged it all the way back, and then she took a step back and she ran, but the tree was too tall. It would not fit through the doorway. After that, she herself was through after all the dragging and carrying. So the next child said, "I am the smartest. I will go out and look for that thing that will fill the house." So off he went. Long he walked, short he walked, until he came, and he was looking for the cleverest thing he could find. Well, he came to a farmer who was busy stuffing a whole lot of goose feathers into an enormous bunch of bags. And since he was the smartest, so he said, he asked the farmer if he'd be willing to sell him all the bags of goose feathers. And the farmer agreed. So the middle child took all the bags of goose feathers. Don't ask me how he carried them all. He somehow did. Back to the house, took them all inside, opened up the bag so that the goose feathers flew all over the place. He was so proud. He went out of the house and he just peeked in through the crack of the door, and he could see that every single little tiniest spot was filled. So he went to his father and he said, "I have done it. Come with me." And he opened the door, glowing with pride. And just as he opened the door, a huge gust of wind whooshed through the door and blew all the feathers all over the place. So everybody was going, "Achoo! Achoo!" And after that, the middle child was so discouraged that he as well was done. Now, the youngest child said, "It is now my turn to try." And their older brother and sister said, "Ha! You think that you will manage to do it? You are neither as strong nor as clever as we are. How could you manage to do that?" So they walked off, trying not to let those harsh words wound them. And they didn't really know what to do, but it was starting to get very dark at that point. So they took a lantern and they opened the door to the one-room house and sat in the middle of the room and just thought. And the light of this lantern just shone on them. And then they began to sing, because singing always made them feel better. It makes me feel better too, you know? Yes. And so they sat there in the middle of the room singing in this beautiful shining lamplight, and suddenly they realized something wonderful. And then their father and their brother and sister saw the light shining from the one-room house and heard the singing and came running and opened the door and stepped in. And the father said, "You have done it." Yes, he said, "You have done it. You have managed to fill the house not just once, but twice over." And after that, the youngest child, they were in their lives, they walked along many paths and just thought for themselves and made many wonderful discoveries, just following their own light, their own path. Thank you for listening. Thank you. And now Susanne and Allison and I are going to teach you a song this was the song that the youngest child sang as they were sitting in the middle of the one-room house. So now you, too, will learn this song. And it's a kind of energetic song. I always feel like standing up and giving it my energy. So if you do feel like standing up, fine. If not, give it your energy from your seat, whatever you prefer. It's called "This Little Light of Mine." Maybe you know it. The words are there. Oh, that's so fun. You guys can join us.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. Hide it under a bushel. I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, hide it under a bushel. No, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. First verse again. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. One more time. Let it shine.
Thanks to my percussion players, too.
So you guys want to come into the LL room and we'll maybe do some thinking outside the box?
Now I will introduce our returning regular guest speaker, Melina Bondy. Melina, who uses the pronouns they, them, is a queer, gender fluid, white settler who began meditating 20 years ago, taking monastic vows under the Vietnamese peace activist and Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh in 2012. After 6 years in the monastery and a few more outside, Melina returned to lay life in 2021 and is now a psychotherapist and meditation teacher with an orientation towards embodiment, compassion, social justice, and creativity. Welcome, Melina.
Okay, let's hope you can hear me okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Allison, Susanne, everybody. Thanks for the welcome, and glad to see familiar faces and some new faces, and those on Zoom, hello. Today we get to continue this theme of be a lamp unto yourself, Buddhist wisdom for navigating a pluralistic world, in this theme of being theologically alive through being ever evolving in understanding and open to new knowledge. I am going to get to the Buddhist part, but I actually want to start with a book that I just finished reading, Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. I don't know if anyone here has read it yet, or if you've heard some of the hype. It's I think it's remarkable. And it begins with the tale of the two Naomis, Naomi Klein and Naomi Wolf. And some of you may be aware that they were getting really mixed up a lot, especially like a decade ago, but still today. And so it starts with Naomi Klein's journey of trying to not pay attention to people keep mixing her up with this other Naomi, because both of them are Jewish women who've written these books that have these like very strong premises that have been influential, but they're also very different people. And as the mistakes start coming is when Naomi Wolf, who had written the beauty myth, starts going down what has led her to now become a regular commentator on Steve Bannon's podcast and a lot of conspiracy theories, so very different from Naomi Klein. And so this question of like, what is true? And how do we know what's going on was really brought to the forefront through her own story of trying to not pay attention to this social media mix-up, and then eventually kind of getting sucked into this rabbit hole of what is going on? How did this person who was kind of in my orbit go into such a different direction? And also, like, when is the time for Naomi Klein to say, like, this is not me, like, I'm someone else, and why are we getting mixed up? And it became this really, for me, I find incredibly thoughtful exploration of the many ways that the sense of self can get focused on our digital lives, and the way that a sense of what is true and what is not true, and how we trust or don't trust, can lead people in such different directions, and yet to create these sort of doppelgangers where there's some parts that could be the same, and actually the doppelganger reveals the collective shadow as not wanting to be seen. Yeah, she ended up writing 350 pages in this book. That actually covers a whole lot, and I won't summarize the book. But how deeply something that can seem kind of small but also is significant could then open into such a wide reflection. And it brings this question that comes to so many humans of like, what if someone mistakes me for someone else? And like, who am I and what matters and who I am and who you are? And our sense of self is kind of wild how easily this can be destabilized. And I think one of the most fundamental aspects that most of us sort of cling to is a sense of like, what's my sense of what's right and wrong, what's true and false? That's so often what can be held as a sense of, this is me. This is what I understand as true and false, and that's you because you have a different sense of what's true and false. So the sense of self is so deeply part of this question of how do we navigate so many truths, alternative facts. It's kind of wild what's beyond wild. It's, I think, dangerous and devastating and wild what's happening today. And so this is where I wanted to both let us sort of ponder a bit of the deep urgency of this question today of how do we discern truth from fiction, but also point to the fact that this is not a new question. This is a question that has been asked since time immemorial, and spiritual teachers around the world, including the Buddha, have had a lot to say about it. So there's a particular story from 2,600 years ago when the Buddha was wandering the plains in northern India, and he came to a village called Kabayama. And so the people there were called the Kalamans. And you may have heard this. Many spiritual teachers came to the area, and so when the Buddha came, the people there said, listen, so many people come telling us this, telling us that, this cosmology, this practice. How do we know what to believe? How do we know what to trust? And this is where this now fairly famous passage from the Buddha came. He said, come, Kalamans, do not go by oral tradition, by lineage of teaching, by hearsay, by a collection of scriptures, by logical reasoning, by inferential reasoning, by reasoned cogitation, by the acceptance of a view after pondering it, or by the seeming competence of the speaker, or because you think this is our guru, our teacher. This passage has been quoted a lot, especially in sort of the secular, modernist, Western, Buddhist, and mindfulness spaces. And it's often held up as sort of, look, Buddhism is very rational. Look, you don't have to believe things that you don't know or understand. Look, this is basically science. And that part of that is true within the Buddhist tradition, but that kind of approach of, look, just figure things out for yourself, interpretation of this, actually supports an individualistic, modernist, colonial worldview that is cut off from the whole. And that's not even what the Buddha meant, but that gets interpreted in the way this passage comes out. So I'm always excited to talk about this because I've also had to challenge myself with this of like, how do I find what's true, what's false, and thus what decisions do I make? Do we all make based upon what we think is true and false? Whether it's in spiritual lineages or at workplaces or raising children, how to be the citizen that you want to be in your community. So what the Buddha then continued to say after the part that gets quoted all the time is, but when you know for yourself, these things are wholesome, which means not causing suffering. These things are blameless. These things are praised by the wise. These things, if accepted and undertaken, lead to the welfare and happiness of the many. Then live in accordance with them. And there's a phrase he would use all the time, ehipassiko, come see for yourself. So you may have heard the phrase, the middle way, which came from the original teaching of finding a middle way between harsh asceticism and hedonism. So not just avoiding pleasure, not just going for what is pleasurable. That's sort of at the heart of Buddhist teachings. But in a way, this is also a middle path of, yeah, listen to your experience, that it does connect to trust your gut, but also, listen to what your friends and family have to say, what those the people that you trust have to say, the teachers, and keep checking in, stay active and engaged, which in this, seeking to be ever evolving in one's understanding and open to new knowledge, that speaks to being in process, as opposed to coming to a final, here's what I believe, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, but rather staying open and in process, which is also what the Buddha was pointing to. And so I have done a lot of trying to see for myself in this life. Part of that happened in choosing to join a monastery and choosing to leave a monastery. These were some big decisions that were based on a very lengthy search for what does feel true and what's real here and what's the best I can figure out. I also really engaged in this when I had my own experience with cancer and deciding to take what kind of treatments and what not, and dealing with what everyone else was saying. And even now I'm studying theology and just got my psychotherapy license and learning to do academia where they're wanting us to make arguments and say what you believe and think, and I actually kind of hated that. I was like, I just want to be open to everything. I don't want to have to take one hard and fast statement because it's going to keep changing. I know that for sure. And so there's a few things that I've found to really, really help. And again, I think that some of you are already touching upon these things, and I'm happy to see our connectedness here. Because with so many wise teachings from so many traditions, I can hear the phrase and go, oh, that sounds great, but how do you do it? That's always my question. What's the how? And there is not just one how, but there's a few hows I found really helpful. Part of it is about tuning into the body, and then part of it is two principles of basic goodness and wholesome remorse. So first of all, tuning into the body, I think this is what some of you were saying, that there is a sense we can tune into somatically, physically, that when we're in touch with that deeper wisdom, it tends to leave the body feeling a little more upright and at ease. It tends to have a little less tension in it. Whereas when we're in touch with a message that can feel like our gut wisdom, but it's coming from fear or anxiety or doubt, then it can often have some tension. It can have this like leaning and looking, sometimes it's really good to be looking around what's happening. But it's not grounded, it's not aligned. And so checking in with not just saying, oh, is this my deeper wisdom? Is this like my gut intuition? From the mind makes it really easy to get clouded by going, okay, wait a minute, what's going on in my body? Is it feeling a little more settled when I get in touch with this sense of truth? Or does it add to the tension? Does it add to the agitation? And so it takes time and space to even be able to tune in. But I found that it's much more trustworthy than just trying to say, oh yeah, this is my gut. Wait a minute, are my guts more tight or a little more at ease when I come into this sense of truth or falsehood? And it's gonna have a different pattern for everybody, but as someone who's been sharing these kind of practices for years, I've found that it's actually quite consistent. That if people really learn to find what does a bit of relief feel like in your body? And how do you start to notice that becomes really workable. We can all sensitize ourselves to this a little bit more and come into a deeper wisdom through our bodies. And then there's these other two principles that are part of what I really tune into and help me through the deeper levels of getting to be able to discern, which, as I mentioned, are this basic goodness that we call Buddha nature, but it's also found in every tradition, of trusting that it is possible to have connection to what is wise and what is true, and that will lead to skillful action, because a lot of us were raised in ways that we did not get that message. We were taught that we are fundamentally bad, that we fundamentally cannot know, we have to turn to others, we have to turn to experts, we have to turn to authorities, we'll be punished if we get it wrong, so don't try, right? So it's some deep, deep, important, beautiful spiritual work to learn to cultivate and trust a sense that amidst everything inside of us, it's not the only thing, but at the root there is this fundamental goodness, and I truly, truly trust and believe in this liberatory, important power of this understanding. But hand in hand, we also have to have the openness to face when I'm trusting, when I'm trying to when I'm trying to find a sense of what's true and false, and not just follow what I've been told. Sometimes I'm going to get it wrong. I'm gonna be ashamed at some point. I'm gonna get humiliated at some point. It's gonna be really uncomfortable, and that's part of the price, if we say. But it's also part of the spiritual liberation, because if we stop being so afraid of being wrong and getting it wrong and falling into that very white supremacist culture sense of perfectionism that, you have to just have that veneer of doing everything right, we don't have to be afraid of not knowing what's the ultimate truth. And that can leave us open to continuing this journey of exploration. So a friend of mine talks about this as the unknowability of everything. That it's not actually possible to know the one right way. I think I maybe even said that here before. It's one of my favorite phrases. There is no one right way, even though so much in society tries to pretend like there is one, and so many religions have tried to tell us there is one right way. That's not what I found. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Father Greg Boyle, who wrote Tattoos on the Heart and Barking to the Choir. He's the priest who is at the center of Homeboy Industries in LA. That's the biggest gang intervention project in the world. And they've done beautiful, beautiful work, and he's an amazing writer. And so in his latest book, The Whole Language, he writes, "In the end, all great spirituality is about what to do with our pain. We hesitate to eradicate the pain since it is such a reverend teacher. It remembers us. Our wounds jostle us from what is false and leaves us only with a yearning for the authentically poetic, the whole language. And so the wounds that come from the times that we've been wrong, that we've dared to face the unknowability and just give it a shot, even when that wounds us, if we turn to it, it can even draw us further in. I know upon leaving the monastery for myself, which, as I've talked to a lot of folks, seems to have a lot of similarities to going through a divorce. There's this deep sense of shattering of what we thought we knew and were committed to, and what was, oh yeah, this is good, this is what's right for my life. And having to just really face a sense of failure. Then there was this one day I was walking, remember I was visiting friends in New Mexico and walking along an arroyo. It was dry and dusty. And it just, this phrase popped into my mind, as they do, saying, oh, this was all a chance to learn to fail. This is the gift of this experience. You don't have to be afraid of failure anymore. And that has become one of the biggest liberators of my life, even though it was so painful. I would never wish it upon anyone else. And I imagine many of you have had your similar experiences, because I'm seeing nods. This is just so human. And as I wrap up, this actually connects back to Naomi Klein, not Wolf. See, this is too easy to do. Single syllable last names. Because, as I said, I was quite remarked by the sort of the poetry of this book, because it's not normally the tone that she takes with so much introspection. And at the end, she realizes that this whole journey was her first experience of starting to understand the Buddhist concept of non-self. Because by having to really face a doppelganger version of herself, it finally let her stop being quite so worried about her own persona, because she just couldn't control it. She can do her best to keep doing what she knows is right, and she can't control the fact that people keep mixing her up with someone else who's really quite different. And I kind of laughed out loud to myself. I was like, wow, I didn't realize I was going to find another version into what is so central to my own tradition in this book. And it's also central to the mantra that we're going to chant at the end of the service, the Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha, which is the mantra, the Heart Sutra, which is a sutra all about dissolving the sense of a separation of self and other. Not by negating ourselves, but just by opening so wide that there is no difference. And I feel that these, being able to recognize that, yeah, we're going to mess things up, and we don't have to be afraid of failure, and trust the fundamental goodness is also a path to not needing to rigidify the sense of a separate self. And so we're going to just close with a meditation, listening to the song Glory that was sung earlier, that I said I wrote earlier, because for me it really is a meditation on the both and of the places that do not like looking at this part of myself, and there's fundamental goodness, and it's okay. So we're just going to listen to the musicality, and I hope you take a few moments to tune into both what is the parts you don't want to see or feel or hear inside, and the part that is also glory.
disturb our meditation moments. So now is the time for our offering. This congregation is a living entity and as such requires nurture and sustenance. If you contribute by pre-authorized withdrawals, we thank you. If you're online, please use the link displayed. I thank you in advance for your generosity. As we contribute to the life of this congregation, we support our programs, our mission, pay our rent and salaries, and we deepen and affirm our lives within it. Greeters, please bring the baskets to me when the money is collected. And we'll now pause, and Susanne will play.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. When my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and that my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
If you have found love and acceptance here, if you have known and found home here, if you have known kindred spirits here, let this offering be a token of gratitude for our common life as we build the common good.
I invite you to rise in energy with me as we sing, as Melina mentioned, Heart Sutra. This was taught to me by Fred Habib Maycock, who's now up in Thunder Bay, when we used to do morning chants before the service. And this was one we sang often. If we could pull up the slide, please. I'll teach it to you phrase by phrase just to get going, and then we'll just loop it a bunch of times. All voices are welcome, harmonies are welcome. Bring yourself as much into it as you wish. So, it sounds like this. I'll sing first repeat. Gate, gate, para gate. Let's try that. Gate, gate, para gate. Next. Para samgate bodhisvaha. Para samgate bodhisvaha. Next. Gate, gate, para gate. Same as the beginning. Gate, gate, para gate. This is where it changes. It goes down instead of up. Para samgate bodhisvaha. Para samgate
Michelle to come forward to extinguish our chalice, please. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourself as to the only Lamb. Please take your neighbor's hand or touch their shoulder as we take this moment to connect physically as we have spiritually. I invite Melina to come forward now and to please share our closing blessing.
This is actually from Naomi Klein. When actions begin to integrate with our beliefs, when we are doing some of the work that we know needs to be done, we have less need for the various doubles our culture offer us, disguised as a good life. The allure of disappearing into digital avatars wanes. So may we find actions that integrate with our beliefs and do the work that needs to be done inside and all around this week and every day.